Welcome back to another in our series of questions that Jesus asked. Our question today comes from Mark chapter 10, verse 36. What do you want me to do for you? To give our question its context, we'll be reading verses 35 through 45 of Mark chapter 10. And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came up to him and said to him, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you. And he said to them, What do you want me to do for you? And they said to him, Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory. Jesus said to them, You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized? And they said to him, We are able. And Jesus said to them, The cup that I drink, you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be indignant at James and John. And Jesus called them to him and said to them, You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. To know and not to do is not to know. I have so many sources that name this quote to various origins that I really don't know who was the first to say it. Was it Stephen Covey, Ralph Nader, Goethe, Confucius, Lao Tzu? That's the problem with good quotes. Everyone will say it, and rightly so. They may not claim it as their own, but if someone hears them say it, they assume it is original. Now, if you hear me say something clever or wise, just assume I've heard it from someone else. I'm not that smart or clever, and nothing I have is original. It goes to integrity. Give credit where credit is due. Trust me, I have trouble enough trying to be true in this world. A very good friend of mine, whose name is Rick, taught me something about one's word. He said his father told him, if you agreed to sell a cow for, say, $300 to someone, and someone else offers you $1,000 later, you've just lost $700. You agreed to sell it for $300, and you are honor bound to hold to that. What you say is your word. It is your reputation. Once you've lost that, what else is there for the world to see? You see, I've made some of my worst mistakes by not keeping my promises. Very big promises, like telling my wife, I'll be home in time for dinner, and then not be home in time. Or telling my children I would do an activity with them, and then just not do it. Those still haunt me to this day. Were you expecting stories about a dying wish someone entrusted to me, or perhaps delivering a heart so an organ transplant could be done? Yes, those are important. But the reality is, the everyday words we use are what people remember. Okay, time to connect the dots. Our situation today in Mark is also found in Matthew 20 and Luke 18. Luke 18 does not include the question, but does describe the same scene. In Matthew's account, Salome, the mother of James and John, approaches Jesus. In Mark's gospel, it is James and John themselves who ask the question. Critics and scoffers point this out as an irregularity. But the reality is that James and John are speaking for their mother, and so she is speaking. You'll find this many times in the gospel accounts, and it's not an inconsistency. It is simply the way that it is conveyed by the writers. Does Jesus really not know why he is being approached? Over and over, he knows the hearts of those who come to him. We read in Luke chapter 9, verses 46 and 47. An argument rose among them as to which of them was the greatest. But Jesus, knowing the reasoning of their hearts, took a child and put him by his side. Or again in Luke chapter 5, verse 21. And the scribes and Pharisees began to question, saying, "Who is this that speaks blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone?" When Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answered them, "Why do you question in your hearts?" And finally, in Matthew chapter 12, verses 24 and 25, "But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, 'It is only by Beelzebul, the prince of demons, that this man casts out demons.' Knowing their thoughts, he said to them, 'Every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand.'" Yes, indeed, Jesus knew what was coming. He would not be like Herod, who made that devastating promise in Matthew chapter 14, verses 6 through 9. For we read, "But when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias danced before the company and pleased Herod, so that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. Prompted by her mother, she said, 'Give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter.' And the king was sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, he commanded it to be given." Although Jesus knew what was coming and what his answer would be, nonetheless, he made them make the request. He first asks them and really informs them of what awaits them. Without batting an eye, they confidently assert that they are ready to drink the cup and to be baptized with his baptism. Both signify that they are willing. Jesus assures them that they will indeed endure such things. We read of James' death in Acts chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. "About that time, Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. He killed James, the brother of John, with a sword." We read of John's suffering in Revelation chapter 1 and verse 9. "I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation and the kingdom and the patient endurance that are in Jesus, was on the island called Patmos on account of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus." Jesus knows he cannot make that promise, for he tells them in verse 23 of Matthew 20, "You will drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." How honorable it is that Jesus should be in complete subjection to the Father. Later, Jesus would tell this quite plainly in Matthew 25:34. "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.'" Paul would speak of this future state in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 9. "But as it is written, what no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man imagined, what God has prepared for those who love him." God will honor his promise. On that we can depend. And I wonder if I am honorable in my every word so casually spoken. And Lord willing, let's meet here again tomorrow and look at another of the questions that Jesus asked.